so now I'm going to show you what you got to do to kind of grade out your pipes. Make sure that they flow right and everything's at the right elevation. So for instance mine, I've got structure starting here, so stuff comes into this structure here, goes out to here, then goes all the way around. At this point I got stuff coming in from here, keeps going around to this point. I got it going out here and then out. Okay, this north part, there is no pipe between this section because it's a different loop. So now I start there, go boom, boom, boom all the way around. This comes into this pipe. This keeps going around, and probably would just keep this going here till it hit here and then out. This would come into here. So just the way that I'm gonna, because your sanitary sewer is gonna leave out whatever your main road to where this, because there's a road here, so that's where it's gonna tie in. Storm sewer is not gonna go that way because storm is gonna stay internal. It's not gonna go out that way. Okay. So what I'd do first is I'd find my first structure. So like for this instance, this one's my first one. It's where I'm starting off at. Okay. I click on the structure. Okay, you get some different options up on the top here. If I go to structure properties, okay, and I go to part properties, okay, now you see some information to put in. Okay, this first part under the general, that's reference surface. Do we want to set a reference surface? What I would do is, since this one is on the road, I would go in here and I'd set that to my road surface. Because if I do that, then I can actually, for the rim is the top of your structure, where your manhole lid is. Automatic surface adjustment, if you set that to true, the rim is automatically going to go to the road surface. Catch my drift? Okay. So now that's going automatically to the road surface. So I'll accept that and hit OK. The other thing to keep in mind is I don't like the way these get named. Structure 1, structure 2. It doesn't really give me a lot of information. So when you're in that structure, when you've got it selected and you're in that structure properties, if you're under information, you can change the name here. Okay, now for all sanitary sewer, you're going to use S, and this will be my first structure, so S1. And hit OK. Now it changes the name. Go down to the next structure. I pick that structure. I go back up to structure properties. Oops, I got both selected. Okay, set that structure properties again. This is my second one, so S2. Part properties, I make sure that my reference surface is to my road surface. Okay, and it's got to be automatic surface adjustment true, so it automatically goes to the surface of my road. Hit OK. Okay, here's my third one. Select that structure, structure properties. I gotta escape out. Keeps wanting to do the last one. Structure properties, make sure my reference surface again is to my road FG. And I think when we set our pipe network, we set it to automatically go to our road, so it might already be in there for you. But if not, you set it at that. Okay, make sure that I name it. So this would be my S3. Okay, then you keep going all the way around to the next one, S4, S5, S6, 7, 8, 9, 10. When you get to here, S11, you probably want to make this S12. Or S12, 13, and then down. And then 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So you have somewhat of a structure of the number going up in the direction of your flow. Let's say you ended out here and this was like S28. When you start your new loop, this would be S29. Because you can't have, I can't go back here and name this S1 because there already is an S1.
Why don't you just name it S1 Blue 2?
Because that gets too long of a name. I mean, different companies have a different way of doing it. I find that works just fine. Okay, so that's what you do with the structures. Now with the pipes, okay, let's say I'm starting with this one. Okay, so this is going to be my highest point, and everything's going to flow down from here. So now if I select that pipe, now if I go up to pipe properties and to the part properties here, okay, you see down here under the geometry I have pipe slope, hold start, pipe slope, hold end, start invert elevation, end invert elevation, start crown elevation. Okay, invert is the bottom of the pipe, crown is the top of the pipe. Okay, so for this one, what I'd want to do is I got to know what my elevation is at the surface. Okay, so what is the elevation up top? So one way I can do that is just make note of what my structure height is. So if I look at my structure properties, I see 1045.018. So I want to start this one off so that the top of the pipe is 7.5 feet down. Okay, so if I take 7.5 off of that, it would be 1040, 1038, 1037.5. Okay, so I start this pipe, I select that pipe, and my start crown elevation, 1037.5. So the top of the pipe is at least 7.5 feet down. Okay, if I hit apply, it's going to change that, but my end is still at -8. Okay, I've got a slope of -637%. That's not what I want. So after you've set the start elevation, I can go to my start or pipe slope for hold start, put in my -0.4, not -0.4. It changes that. As soon as you hit apply, now you see my crown elevation stayed the same, but now my end adjusted. Now my end, from here on out, I'm going to use my invert. For my start, I use my crown just to make sure that the top is down. Okay, so now I know I'm going at a 0.4%. So I hit OK. So now this is going at a 0.4% into this structure. Okay, so if I'm looking at this pipe, so the end invert is at 1036.178. Okay, now I have a pipe that goes out right across from it. The general rule in a sanitary sewer is that from this pipe invert to the going out invert has to drop 1/10. Because you can't have a flat bottom because the stuff would sit there. So you got to have a sloped bottom of your sanitary sewer. So the start invert for here has to be 1/10 down. So if my pipe here, if my end invert is 1036.178, it's going to be 1036.078 starting the next pipe. So now I select this pipe, pipe properties, my start invert, 1036.078. I just dropped a 10. Okay, I hit apply. It's going to adjust stuff. Now I need to adjust the pipe slope from the start. So I take that out, put a -0.4. Okay, and then I hit apply, and now it's adjusting the elevation. So now I have 1035.35. 1 is my end invert elevation here. So at 1035.351, I need to drop a 10. So 1035.251. Meaning that this pipe has to start at 1035. What did I say? 251. Apply, and I'm going to put the slope here. Oops. minus 0.4, apply. So now I have my new end invert at 1034.537, which means I have to drop a tenth for the next pipe. So 1034.537, so down to 1034.437. So I go here, the next pipe, 1034.437, is that what it was? Hit apply, change the slope to a minus 0.4, apply again, 1033.697, so I gotta go down the next pipe and change that. Okay, so now the thing to keep an eye on, so I'm just going to hit OK, I'm going to look at this structure. So if I take a look at this structure, the structure properties, I'm going to set the surface for this one to road, change the name to S4. Okay, so if I'm looking at this structure, I right click and I go to properties. So now I have my rim elevation is at 1043.936. Okay, the sump elevation, that should automatically adjust to whatever your pipe is. Whatever the lowest pipe is, it should automatically adjust to that. Remember I set that pipe at 1034.437, right? So that's my bottom of my structure. So you want to go until, if you have a structure that hits 20 feet deep, you're probably going to want to put a lift station in. Right now I'm only at just a little under 10. So I'm still okay.
You want to put a lift station in, or do you want to just kind of redo like what?
No, you need to put a lift station in. Okay, so let's just imagine that this is 20 feet deep. Okay, so if this one's 20 feet deep, what I would do is, while I have this structure selected, I go to swap part and I choose new sanitary lift station. Okay, so now this is a sanitary lift station. Now instead of calling it S4, I'd go and I'd change the structure name and I would call this LS1, lift station 1. Okay, so now, and you can move, if you select these labels, you can move them off to the side because you'll have to eventually anyways. So they're out of the way of that structure. So now this is a lift station. So now what you do is you take this pipe and you'd start that up at 7.5 feet down from the surface to the top, just like you did at the beginning. So basically when you look at your profile view of this structure, you'll have this structure and you have a pipe coming in way down here, and then you'll have a pipe coming out way up here, because we're lifting all that stuff up and then sending it back down again.
That's what a lift station does?
In reality, you couldn't have a lift station in your road, because when you have to have it, like, a lift station is a pretty big thing.
In reality, you still could, because you're looking at like the big lift stations for like storm sewer, the big things that you see sitting outside. In reality, yes, you probably would want to put this over to the side, but you can contain all the stuff that's part of the lift station inside the manhole. And you just run the power and everything underground. So it would work in the road. But, and for us, I'm not worried. I mean, we're not going to get too technical. So, okay, so that's what you do with your sanitary sewer. Okay, so I'm going to let you get started in your sanitary sewer. I'm going to punch in my storm sewer real quick, and then I'll show you what storm sewer you do. Okay? Alright, so I just want to explain storm pipe real quick. Okay, so for mine, again, like I said, storm really doesn't need to go out the lot down the entranceway. So for mine, the way mine's set up, I have my whole center here as a pond. Okay? Now, what I would do is I'd basically split this in half. So right here is a high point. So there's no need for me to have a structure here, because everything's going to flow from here down to here, and from here down to here. Once it hits here, it's going to get carried out this way. Once it hits here, it's going to get carried out this way. So now here's my low point, so everything flows in to this structure, and then it flows down the street to the next structure, then down to the next low point. Everything flows in again to the next high point, and then it goes out here to the low point. Things come in, goes out to a structure here, and then my pipe goes all the way to the end to my pond. Okay, when it hits your pond, not sure if we have a block for it or not. Let me look. That's not what I want. Okay, so it's not there, but what we'll do is we'll make one. So what I do then at the end here is I turn on my layers. I'd activate my C-Storm, probably C-Storm structure, because it is a structure, because it's going to be out of the surface. Okay, so my C-Storm structure. Then I would draw in a little from the end point here. That, and I'd mirror it just so I'm going. So I have something like that. Okay, that's my end section. It's telling me that there's an outlet there. Okay, then probably what I would do is I'd select these two, type B for block, and I would name this FES, which stands for flared end section. Okay, what do you want your base point to be? I'd pick a point. My base point, which would be my attachment point, would be here, and everything else could stay the same. I hit OK. Now you see I can move it. It's based off of that point. Now if for some reason and then when I have a pipe coming out here, all I would have to do is type I for insert, find my flared end section, insertion, specify on screen, hit OK, pick that point, and there we go. And then you just have to rotate it. Oh. One thing that I didn't do though is so insert, specify on screen, don't explode it, and rotation, specify on screen. Because now if I hit OK, I place that here and then I can rotate it to the right direction, and there it is. Okay, there's one over here. I just do insert, flared end section, OK, place it there, rotate it to the right direction, there we go. So now we have it good for future.
You said you still got to make the YouTube video on this too?
Yep, I will. Okay, so now what do we do with the grading as far as the pipe slopes go? Okay, remember with storm, it's not such a significant deal that it's 7.5 feet down, just as long as it's below our pavement depth. So typically what I do is to make sure that everything is below, I probably would go down maybe 2 feet with my inlets. So when I select, well, first off you'd select your structure and you go to your structure properties. Okay, and then when you set here, you'd set just like with your sanitary, I set my surface to be road so that the top of the structure will be on the road. Okay, and you do that with all of them. Okay, you do the same thing with this one, you do the same thing with this one. Now when it comes time to naming structures, like we did S for sanitary, for these for these manholes, not the inlets, okay, when we label those and or give them a name, we are going to call those M1. Okay, the next one down here would be M2, and so on.
You're not gonna give an name each one, let's have.
You're jumping ahead of me here. Okay? These catch basins, they don't get the name M. I pick this one here, structure properties. I'm going to call this CB1, catch basin 1. Then this one is going to be CB2. Okay, you go down here. This is going to be CB3, CB4, CB5, CB6. Okay, so while you're adjusting the rims to the surface, just change the name. Okay, so then as far as pipes go, okay, let's say, where am I at here? Okay, here we are. So for this inlet, what I'm going to do is I find out what my elevation is of my surface at that structure. So I take a look at my structure properties. I see that my surface elevation is 1044. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take my, since these are all the ones coming from the inlets are 12-inch pipe, okay, and I want to have the top of the pipe be down 2 feet. Okay, I'm going to take it 3 feet for the invert. So just remember 3 feet down for the invert. So at 1041 is where my invert's going to be. So I select the pipe there. Okay, go to pipe properties. My start invert is 1041. Again, my slope minus 0.4. And apply all that. Now I have the pipe coming into this structure at 1040.973. So I hit OK. Again, the opposite side should be the same elevation of the road because you're going down at a 2% the same distance. So this pipe again should start at the same elevation, 1041, as long as they're perpendicular to each other. Okay, again it's going to go down at a minus 0.4%. I apply. That's what you got going into here now. Okay. You do that for all the catch basins. All of them are going to start at 3 feet below the surface. Okay, so those are really easy. When it comes time for doing the main lines, so like from this down, what I do is I take a look at what my lowest point is coming in to the structure. So for instance, that would be this one because I got a longer length at the same slope, so it would be lower. So this pipe comes into that structure at 1040.915. Okay, so I want to make sure that my pipe going downstream is lower than that. Doesn't matter how much lower. Also, I need to know what my size of my pipe is. So if I got basically 1041 is what it's coming in at, right here. Okay, I need to make sure that the top of the pipe is 2 feet below the surface at least. And if this pipe is bigger than the 12-inch pipe coming in here, let's say this is 24-inch, okay, now my invert needs to be 4 feet down from the surface. So I take a look at this structure. Okay, I look at what my structure properties are. I see that, excuse me, change this to road FG. So 1043.77. So I know I got to be 4 feet below that. So if I go 4 feet below 1043.77, that puts me at 1039.77. Am I lower than that one pipe coming in? Yeah, so I'm good. So I could put this one at 1039.77. Okay, so I change this, take this pipe properties, my start invert, 1039.77. Okay, it's going to go down at a minus 0.4%. Apply that. So now downstream, the end of the pipe is at 1039. So I'll accept that. So I'll go down to the end here. So in this structure, it's coming in at 1039. Again, I'm going to drop a tenth from that. So I go to pipe properties from the one coming out, change the start elevation to 1038.9. It's a tenth down. Okay, a minus 4% slope, 0.4%. Apply. So now downstream, it's coming into the next in structure at 1038.17. Down a tenth, out you go. Okay. Now, yes, we have to keep in mind that the road's doing this, so are we still 4 feet below the surface, or are we now coming up because the road went down? So you still have to go in and double check what elevation the top of the manhole is at where the pipe's coming in, and make sure that at a 0.4%, if it's too high, you need to make that 0.4% less, so like, or more, like 1% or something to drop it.
You gotta reach a point though where if you have a long enough line.
Yep. Again, just like with storms or sanitary, if your structure is 20 feet deep, put in a lift station.
Now with those on the storm sewer, if you want us to shift it over so down the road, you're not worried about that.
I'm not worried about that now. We don't have time to get it super precise. If you want to, you can. I mean, this is just to get you understanding how to put pipe networks in. It's not making it 100% accurate.
So just out of curiosity, if one of us were to get a job right out of school as a CAD drafter, I'm assuming they go upstairs in the office and they come and get pipe networks up right off the bat.
I got going into the deep
But
end.
they just threw you right in.
Yeah. And when I was a student here, we didn't go through pipe networks. First day on the job, they said, "Do you know how to do pipe networks?" I said, "No," and they said, "You will." That's why when I came here, I started doing pipe networks. Because every CAD drafter that's ever left here does a lot of pipe networks. So,
Where did you learn most of this stuff? Was that just from going through it? Or?
YouTube, books, Google, other people.
The CAD drafter at basically the same way. That's for something the drafter, she was, she did a lot of CAD, and she came there, she had no survey experience whatsoever, and they asked her, she didn't know how to, I mean, what she was doing, but she's like, I've never done it before in my life, she's like, well, you're about to learn.
Yep, you're gonna learn quick. Okay, so that's basically what you do. The question came up with what would you do if the lift station. So if, let's say if this was 20 feet deep and I needed to put a lift station in, what I would probably do is take this structure, just slide it off to the side here. Now I put my lift station in. That's what I would do in real life.
Concerned about, like, I think back there you had like a storm sewer run across the top of a sanitary sewer. You're not
Nope.
gonna be like checking the depth to make sure like where they run across.
I might briefly look, but I'm not going to go through with a fine-tooth comb with that. But yes, in a situation like this, where you see my storm sewer goes right over, oh, actually this one doesn't, because my sanitary
It
goes
don't
there.
matter, but you know what I mean.
But if my sanitary went up this way and I had this crossing, the rule is when you have the pipes crossing, you have to have 2 feet of separation between the bottom of the topmost pipe and the top of the bottommost pipe. And then you put in a bunch of sand and different things around that crossing. Now there's a software that Autodesk makes called Navisworks, and that automatically looks at all your pipes and sees if there's any crossing. But again, we don't have time to start a new software, so. Okay, so that's what you got to do. You just got to go through, and you should have enough information now to get your pipe networks going. As far as sanitary and storm, we'll handle water next week. but water is really easy.
I have a question.
Yep. Let me just stop the recording here and I'll come